Welcome to All Bodies on Bikes, the podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides are celebrated.
All Bodies on Bikes is a movement to create and foster a radically inclusive bike community. So join your hosts, I'm Ellen,
And I'm Marley.
as we explore the complexities of the biking world. Help us break down barriers and create the world that we want to see.
And don't forget that all bodies really means all bodies, not just larger bodies, but bodies of all sizes,
Ages,
races,
abilities,
genders,
sexualities.
and beyond. Come along for the ride. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the All Bodies on Bikes podcast, where all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides are celebrated. We are back for, I don't know, is it season 2? Is it season 3? We're going to call it season 3. And we
Great.
have a new host. We have a
Hello.
new strategy, although it's likely going to sound the same. We've got some new partnerships, and we've got some new energy, and I am really, really excited.
Me
What-
too.
Yeah. Who are you?
Who am I? My name is Ellen, and I'm here to be your co-host, Marley.
I'm so excited. Yeah, we definitely miss Maggie. Maggie was an incredible co-host. But if folks aren't following along with Maggie's journey on Instagram, their music is absolutely blowing up right now. They were the headliners for Charlotte Pride.
Oh my
which-
gosh.
Yeah, they went through this. It was like an American Idol style competition and they won. They have just had so many gigs and it's been really fun to see their musical journey really take off. So folks should
Yeah.
go listen. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. But
Absolutely, we will.
Yeah.
Congrats, Maggie.
yeah, really exciting. But so Ellen lives in Kansas City, just up the road from me in Bentonville. And I guess I should introduce myself. I am Marley Blonskey. I am your other co-host of the All Bodies on Bike show. And what are we talking about today, Ellen?
Today, we are going to reintroduce the whole thing. We're going to start fresh because in my infinite amount of homework that I did to become your co-host, I was re-listening and I realized you never did a proper intro either as to why you are here and why you are the executive director of All Bodies on Bikes and a little bit about you. I mean, I feel like it's a similar story. Like I know about your Instagram. I know what you've been up to this summer because there was that awesome road trip series. But who are you and what's going on? And then we'll do the same for me and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this episode because, it's a funny transition that has happened for me over the last, I'd say about year. Because for when All Bodies on Bikes, the film first came out, I was getting invited onto all these podcasts and I was telling my story all the time. And I got really good at telling my story. And then it seems like as soon as you get your own podcast, people stop asking you to be on their podcast. And so now I'm on the other side of the mic and I'm doing the interviewing, but it's still, and maybe this is the narcissist in me, but it
Mhm.
still feels like I want to tell my story. So I'm excited for today's conversation.
I like that a lot. Do you dream about being on your favorite talk show and what you would say?
Kind of. I dream about being on This American Life with Ira Glass.
That's the best, nerdiest, podcastiest thing I think you could have ever said in that response.
It's funny. I have
Um,
been like a podcast radio show fan for probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years, kind of since this whole genre became a thing. And I feel like I know my favorite podcast hosts so well.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think people feel that way about me, which is always weird. But I guess it's not because I feel the same way about Ira Glass and some of the
Yeah.
other ones.
Like, yeah, I believe it. And I think that's true even just like of any influencer, anyone who's trying to really build the space up. I want you to be authentic. I want to know your authentic self. But as a reminder to our listeners, we love you, but also introduce yourself because we don't know you a lot of the
Yes.
times. Marley's an amazing celebrity, but also doesn't know your name. So
I don't know if I consider myself an amazing celebrity. People introduce
gonna change
themselves to
that.
me. Let me explain. I know I'm a celebrity, at least in this weird little
Yeah.
bike world that we live in. But people introduce themselves to me, and I just get this blank look, and I'm like, "It's so nice to meet you." And then we've met before, and then I get this, "Oh shit,
Mm.
oh." So I just need to be better about, "Oh, tell me again what your name is," or remind me about the last time we met, instead of just completely clamming up and saying, "I don't know this person."
So this is a great reason to have a co-host who might travel with you someday. I'm inserting myself into that situation.
I
But
love it. You're manifesting it.
I'm manifesting it. My husband and I have a secret agreement that's if we kind of give each other the sign, it's a bit of, oh no, I don't think you've met that person, but I have, so you have to go first.
Yeah. Oh,
My
I love that.
husband
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Sneaky.
I tend to be pretty aware of that when I'm with somebody else and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I totally forgot this person's name," or, "Oh, maybe I know this person, maybe I don't." And so to be like, "Hey, this is my friend Ellen," and you say, "What's your name?" It doesn't always work though, and then it's just even more awkward because
One
then
time we
neither of
did
us
it.
know their names.
Yeah, I was gonna say one time we did it and the person had met both of us, and so we were both just SOL. What should we talk
Officially.
about first?
Oh
Officially.
god, when did we meet each other? That's a really good question.
Mhm. I fangirled when you came to Kansas City and
I think
for the podcast.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we had recorded that live podcast there, and I think we
Mhm.
met briefly, but that's a perfect example of I don't necessarily remember meeting you at that point, but
Right.
then we were at AC's house. AC is our Kansas City chapter leader. We were at his house, and you were wearing a Manatee Cycling Club sweatshirt,
I was,
and I was
'cause
like,
I was fangirling.
and then I was fangirling that somebody was wearing my shirt, and it
Yeah,
was so cool. So I think that's when we officially met.
agreed.
And I think you had mentioned at that point that you had some experience doing podcasting, and
Mm,
we kind of went down the rabbit hole together. So, Ellen, talk to me a little bit about your history. How did you get into podcasts and what have you worked on?
sure. So my history with podcasting actually started about 5 years ago, and I joke that, like, I love to host a podcast, but I don't actually listen to them that much, which I think matches the extroversion and the Gemini and the, like,
Wait,
also somewhat chaotic brain. Yeah.
are you a
Did
Gemini?
you not Yeah. Did
I
you
am
not know this?
too.
Yes.
I'm like cusp
Like
Taurus Gemini.
right, because 'cause you're a little earlier than me.
I'm
I'm
an early
mid-30s.
Gemini.
Yeah, but I'm like, if we wanna get into this, I'm not just a sun sign, I am also a rising Gemini, which means I'm, like, wildly Gemini. But
That's
anyway,
I like to pretend
long
that I
s
know things about astrology. I really only know about Gemini traits because
yeah,
I just don't care to learn the other ones. Ugh.
I only know about other ones because the other people in my life who post about them post a
Mm.
lot. Oh, so I know a lot about Geminis because of me, and I know a lot of Virgos because of other people, and so
It's I just learned it's Virgo season.
oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Which is anyway, we don't need to really talk about this. This is a great example of I'm so good at running my mouth. And so
Which is why you're gonna be an excellent podcast co-host.
thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. Lean into your strengths.
Yes.
So about 5 years ago, I was laid off from my job and I'd had this idea for a podcast that was about grief because I had friends whose parents had passed away and I felt very stuck in knowing what to do. And so what I wanted to do is like tell the story of from the side of the person who's the support person
Mm.
in in that situation. So that one's called Sorry for Your Loss. It's still up and out in the world, and it's something I'm really proud of. Just the conversations and what I learned from it has continued to prove so useful and so human that it felt really good. It was just like I think I maybe put out 12 episodes.
Cool. That's a
Yeah.
I kinda like those little, like, capsule podcasts where you get through the whole thing all at once and it's not an ongoing thing, although obviously we're an ongoing thing. So sorry for your loss. Is it good for people who are grieving, who are supporting people who are grieving? Just curious about that.
Yeah, the second one. So it's there are lots and lots and lots of resources out there if you are the griever. But there is not what I found, at least what I felt was that there's nothing that tells me how to support you in your grief. I'm in the moment in my life where like the sad things are going to start happening to my friends and eventually to me. Grief comes with any change. So it's been so helpful for me to just reframe a lot of that. If it doesn't even have to be the death of a parent, which is what I talk to most people about. I mean, pets, yes, but also job change.
Mhm.
Also I had a kid 4 years ago, and there's grief in that, even though it's celebratory, there's just change is grief, grief is change, and so here are ways to not shy away from supporting the people in your life.
I'm definitely gonna put that on my list. I
Please.
unfortunately joined the Dead Dad Club a couple years ago, and I noticed I was, like, 35 when it happened, and which is relatively young, but I noticed the older
Mhm.
I get, having gone through that, I feel much more better equipped to then support my friends who join that awful club. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
and
Well,
that's
I'm gonna go listen to that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, very cool. I'm stoked to have you as my co-host, but you're also into bikes a little bit. Yeah, and you just mentioned that you have a 4-year-old.
I
Do you
do.
guys ride bikes together? You do some family biking, right?
Yes, I started Casey Family Bike Ride because I felt like I didn't see anybody else doing what I was doing, and so wanted to provide that bit of encouragement, kinda hand-holding to other families in the Kansas City area. Kansas City is not super well known for being bike forward, though we are making tons and tons of progress. So, my kid has been on a seat of some kind since he was 10 months old, and it was just one of the and 4 years ago, for those of you keeping count, depending on when you're listening, was COVID, the height of it. June of 2020 is when my kid was born. So we couldn't get out of the house for the first year of his life. And once he was finally big enough to sit and hold himself up in the bike, I was like, we're going. I've got an e-bike and I got a front seat for it, like the handlebar seat for him. And we haven't looked back. We've gone through many iterations since then. But him on the front seat, and of course he's the cutest baby in the world, objectively. And people in Kansas City, I think specifically, weren't prepared for this adorableness to be, like, coming down the street towards them, and so just watching them light up and they would wave and he would eventually learn to wave, and then I'd be pointing, like, you just get to babble with your kid when they're right in front of you, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and it's something that I wanna do anyway. Like, I've designed a lot of my life around being able to ride my bike instead of drive my car, which I will say is it's a bit of a flex in like a city that is has been built around cars. Like
Yeah,
we
100%.
yeah, famously tore our streetcars out in the 1950s and now we're putting them back in. So that is kind of like my stake in the ground, my statement on what I wanna do with bikes. I want people to see that you can use them for utility. You can be swapping out these small trips, even in a city like Kansas City. Then that's, like, very much related to, I think people our age have a lot of climate anxiety, and what can you
Rightfully
do
so.
that is yeah, what can you do that is actually impactful? And that's a thing for me. That is I can do that. I can swap so many of these 1 to 2 to 3-mile trips for my e-bike and not be driving my car.
Yeah. It's funny. So I lived in Seattle for 18 years, was a cyclist for the last, I don't know, 6 of those. I felt very similarly in Seattle. I built my life in a way that I could either walk to the grocery store, I could ride there, I could walk or ride to work. And that's such a huge privilege to be able to do that. And now that I live in Bentonville, similarly, I have this incredible rental downtown, which if you've ever looked at Bentonville real estate, like just go
Mhm.
go play on Zillow for a few minutes. It is out of control. But somehow I have this incredible rental that I can afford on a nonprofit executive director salary slash influencer salary, which maybe we'll talk about that. I don't know.
We should.
We should talk about that, talk about the realities of it. Anyway, my life is also very bike centric and I'm so grateful for it. And the rare time I do get in my car, it's not fun, which is weird
Yeah.
that I willingly took a 6,000-mile road trip this summer.
Yeah. The van life is not quite the same as let me get in my car to do everything life.
Yeah.
Like, there's a purpose behind the van.
It's true, but it was so big, and I don't wanna speak ill on it because I had an incredible experience that I found myself not going places in the car intentionally because it was so big.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
even though I didn't have a cargo bike with me, I was like, "Okay, I'm going to the grocery store on my bicycle, and I'm just gonna carry as many groceries as I can home to
Yeah.
the van." So,
Home to the van.
yeah,
Home to van life.
home to van life.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's for me for sure, and I think other people have if you don't know where you're gonna park, you're not gonna go,
Yeah,
but bike parking is so simple, and I don't have to feel like I'm circling the block 5 times because I am hauling a toddler who has tiny legs. We got stuck in a rainstorm yesterday. The one time this kid doesn't insist on running down the sidewalk is when we're in a pop-up thunderstorm.
oh,
Cool.
no.
Cool, kid,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for your perspective because I'm not a mom, and we have an episode coming up where we're gonna talk about biking while being pregnant, and so I'm just
Yeah,
super stoked to have your perspective on cycling
thank you.
and bike community and culture, and on our little prep document, you said you can do 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon to tie a bike back to a social issue.
I think I can.
Can I
I'm basically challenging myself to try it.
Yeah, I kinda wanna test you on it.
Okay.
Let's talk about charter schools.
Charter schools and tying that back to bikes. Oh, I got this.
Okay.
So, charter schools have made it to where you're not attending your neighborhood school. You can go to a charter school from any point in the city. So it's breaking up this community feel. And a lot of times it used to be that, you just go to your public school, it's down the street. You could so easily ride your bike there.
Mm.
And instead, we're all driving our cars because, of course, if we are like, I don't know actually exactly if charter schools, they probably do run buses to a certain extent. But a lot of times, if you're at a charter school, you're going to be dropping your kid off every day.
Yeah, unless there is a safe route to the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you've chosen the charter school because it's next to you and you can ride your bike to it. That's the inverse of that, I suppose. But this idea that suddenly we don't just go where is local and where our lives are not inherently built locally. You can choose a school that's across town. Means you can't do anything except drive your car unless you're in a city that's built already for cycling or for public transportation, and you can do it super simply.
That is impressive. Nice work. Mic drop, seriously.
Thank you.
I live across the street from an elementary school, and I was like, "Something about schools." Yes, okay, so, yeah,
Nice.
I might challenge you again at some point, maybe not on today's episode, but
Okay.
that's gonna be a fun game, and maybe listeners
Thanks.
can I I wanna
Yeah,
say call
challenge me.
in, but how would they challenge us? We'll figure that out.
Oh, no, we figured this out. We are going to put boxes up on Instagram
Oh, yeah.
ahead of episodes that we know are coming up soon, so don't forget to go follow at All Bodies on Bikes.
Yeah, okay, good save there. Trying to think about what other questions I have for you to get to know you. You lived overseas for a little while, is that correct?
I did, and that definitely shaped a lot of my confidence and, like, social goodness of bikes. I have always thought that bikes are gonna save the world. That's kind of the joke for me, at least behind the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, is it's like, it touches on equity, it touches on economics, it touches on transportation, obviously, and climate change and women's rights. Bikes can be the answer to so many of these
Yes.
things. Building for the common denominator in your city, build for wheels, build for strollers. That was where so I lived in London for about 4 years and was able to ride my bike everywhere. Like, you don't have a car in London unless you are heckin' rich, which I am not. So I, took public transportation, yeah, but then just got this like super old bike. I think this bike was made the year I was born, which we'll just say for estimation purposes is before the 90s. And it was this like steel frame 3-speed bike. And I bought it off of the equivalent of Craigslist and just started riding around. And even London at the time had just launched their cycle superhighway network.
Mm, okay.
So basically a web network of completely divided bi-directional cycle lanes. So very safe, very much part of their development plan, but had to fight for it so hard as well. I came in at just the right time when they were actually opening all these lanes, and like the lead up even in London was hard fought to get these things built. So seeing that, but then also seeing how easy that made it for me to just have this freedom and this autonomy outside of having a car was really a big part of it. And even just knowing how to ride my bike in traffic that's super dense, like I just gained a lot more confidence. Didn't feel like I had to constantly be looking for bike paths if I knew where to go. So it was very, very formative and also kind of got me out of the Lycra mindset. Like
Yeah.
before that, I was riding for recreation most of the time in Kansas City. And, in London, I just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to change to get on my bike just to get home from work. So I'm just going to ride home in my jeans. And it was fine. Like I'm only riding like, I think maybe 5 miles. So it's not like I was doing 20 miles and sweating up a storm or anything. Definitely got rained on a lot, but otherwise just kind of made it to where this is just how I get around this. I'm going to wear whatever I wear. So, and
Did you
like
have
the other
a
day,
rain cape?
no,
We
I had some rain jackets,
Oh, nice. We gotta get you a
but
rain cape, a nice little clever hood, because that would've been perfect for those times
I think
in
it would have. And there wasn't like, it was just, that's close to 10 years ago at this point. And it's amazing to me how even London has developed and just the world in general, the world of biking has developed. London, I think, just passed this year. I think like close to 50% of people cycle to work now. Like more
incredible.
people, yeah, more people ride bikes than drive cars, I think.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I remember I was in London, it must've been 2019, it was definitely before the pandemic, and I was there for work, and I picked up a city bike share, I forget what the system is called there, but it definitely took some brain work to make sure that I was cycling on the correct side of the street,
Yep.
and every time I would turn, I would have to think about it, and then I would overthink it, and then thankfully, I was out on a very early Saturday morning just kind of checking out art and checking out the markets and things like that, so traffic
Yes.
wasn't too bad. But that was an adventure for sure.
Yes. It is amazing how difficult it is to make a right turn when your brain needs to think of it as a left turn, like
Yep.
crossing all the traffic. It's but yeah, no, for sure. It's it your brain hurts the first several rides. And Marley, we wanted to talk a bit more about you too, not letting you off the hook quite so
All
easily.
right.
But do you have the TLDR of Marley and how you came to be all bodies on bikes?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and it has been a wild journey. Absolutely wild. So, I started riding bikes in 2014, maybe it was 2013, I don't know exactly, and I'd gotten divorced, so I started riding bikes in Seattle, very quickly got into more of the adventure side of riding, so bike camping, bike packing. Yes, those are 2 different things, we can talk about that later, but in
Mm.
my brain, bike camping and bike packing are 2 different things, and I will fight you on it. Uh,
That can be
um
the first Instagram box we put up. Fight us on this
Yeah, oh, that's such a good idea. We should write that down. Although I guess we have it recorded.
recording.
We're recording. We have it. Anyway, I started blogging about my experiences with no real purpose in mind, but except to blog about it, to share routes, to share my favorite campsites. And I was doing what are called S240s. So I
What's
forget what it
that?
stands for. Single something overnighter. Basically, just a one night out in under 24 hours, out and back in under 24 hours on your bicycle.
Okay.
I can't believe I forgot what S240 stands for. But anyway,
When I mean, isn't the 2-4, is that not 24?
yeah, that's 24, and I think it's
But
overnighter, but I forget what the S
but
stands for.
what's the S? Okay.
I
You
don't
want me to
know.
Google it?
Sure. Yeah.
Here, I'll Google it. S24. Oh, adventure cycling, sub 24-hour overnights.
There we go, sub 24. There we go. And honestly, most of mine were I was working in downtown Seattle, and I would take the ferry after work, and then I would be back at work the next morning by 8 a.m. So they were often, like, 14, 16-hour micro adventures, and they were really
Oh my
fun.
gosh.
Yeah, but
That's
nothing
awesome.
crazy. It would be like 8 miles each direction to the campground. So, it's kind of the same style of adventuring that I do now, definitely more on the mild side than the wild side.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, started blogging about this, kind of became a known presence in Seattle, and I started doing bike advocacy, and at some point along the way, I realized I didn't have clothes that fit me in terms of bike clothes. I was going on all these
Mhm.
adventures, and I didn't have a raincoat that fit me. I didn't have a pair of cycling bibs. I didn't understand why you would wear cycling bibs because I had never worn them. And so a lot of the advocacy that I had been doing towards safe streets, I kind of shifted towards size inclusion. And this was in 2017, 2018. Around that time, I saw Kaylee, my co-founder. She
Yeah.
was doing the same kind of adventuring. She was on a bike packing trip. She had won a scholarship from Lael Wilcox to ride her bike across Alaska. And
Oh my
she
gosh.
yeah, it was incredible. Her and her friend went and they did a bunch of climate research. But her Instagram post that stood out to me was she was on this trip that was sponsored and they didn't have a raincoat in her size. And I was like, "Oh my god, somebody else is having this issue. We need to work together," because she's obviously got the
Yes.
ear of the industry if she had gotten the scholarship. I'd already been talking to bike brands and kind of had a presence. I was one of I sound so vain saying this, but I was an early influencer in the bike world.
Mhm.
And so I slid into her DMs and we started working together. At the time it was called the WTF Bike Explorers. They're now known as RAR, the Radical Adventure Riders, if you've heard of them. They had a summit in Oregon, and Kaylee and I basically put on this presentation that we called Fat Bikers, where we talked about size inclusion for one of the first times that I know that I've heard that it's been done in the cycling world. And we got incredible feedback. There was probably 100 folks there, lots of folks from the industry, and the overwhelming consensus was, "You guys need to do more of this. Like, this information is so crucial and so desperately needed," that really kinda lit a flame under Kaylee and I. We applied to present at the League of American Bicyclists Bike Summit the
Yeah.
next year, and we started a GoFundMe to fund our way there. And then there's a reporter for the Washington Post that her entire beat is looking at GoFundMes and telling those stories.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah. So she reached out to us and said, "This is so cool. I would love to tell your story and put something in the Washington Post about it." And I
My
still use it.
god.
I forget what the headline was, but it was like, "These fat bikers want you to join them," or something. And it
Oh,
was
yeah.
a giant picture of my ass. It was great, but it definitely, like, it showed that I was in a bigger body. So,
Right.
COVID hit, we didn't go to Washington, DC, but that ended up being an incredible blessing because instead of just giving this talk to, 15, 20 people that were in the room at the conference, we were able to do it virtually. Somewhere along the way in there, Zeppelin Zirip, who was the director of the film, he heard our story, and he had gone to college with Kaylee, so I think he saw it on her Instagram or something or her
Oh,
Facebook, and said, "Hey, I would love to tell this story. This would make an incredible film. Are you guys down for that?" And we said, "Sure." And so he pitched it to Shimano. He also slid into their DMs and said, "I have a story I wanna tell." And we made the film, and the rest is kinda history. The
right.
film got this incredible reception. I haven't talked about this much, but the film came out in March of 2021, and we had all been hoping throughout the production process and the editing that, by the time this premieres, we'll be able to do it in person. And it
Mhm.
became quickly evident that, no, I'm gonna be watching this film on my couch. And it
Yep.
felt like such a disappointment and such a letdown because here was this incredible thing, but it felt like nobody was gonna see it. And that was the opposite of what happened because
Yeah.
it came out during COVID and people didn't have anything better to do, it spread s n virally, I guess is the word. Um,
Ba-dum.
exactly. And my life blew up from there. I got stoned one day. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. Yeah, this is our podcast. I can talk about
It's
this.
your podcast.
Yeah.
Like, you're in
Um,
charge. You're
I got
literally in charge.
yeah, I got stoned and went for a bike ride one day and kinda had this, like, vision of All Bodies on Bikes as an organization, leading rides around the country and doing advocacy. And I talked with Kaylee and I said, "I think this could be a thing. Are you cool if I pursue it?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm in grad school right now. I'm finishing up my PhD, and then I'm going to work for the federal government. My involvement is going to be limited, but keep me involved." And that's really where All Bodies on Bikes started. We started giving more talks. We realized chapters were an incredible way to grow. Because basically, at that point, whenever I would travel somewhere or whenever Kaylee and I would travel somewhere, we would host social, inclusive rides where nobody got dropped. And then more and more places started requesting it. Gravel rides started requesting it as soon as I made my interest known that I wanted to go to these events and I wanted to lead shakeout rides because that was
Uh-huh.
really where I was getting left behind was these big events. And now here we are. We're an official 501(c)(3) nonprofit. It's fascinating because at the beginning, Kaylee and I always said we didn't want it to be the Marley and Kaylee show. This is about the community,
Mhm.
it's about the broader interest. And I'd say within the past year, that switch has really happened. Instead of people saying, "Oh, Marley, all bodies on bikes, all bodies on bikes, Marley," there's a lot of folks who have no idea who I am. There's a lot of people who have never seen the film, don't even know that there's a film that exists.
Nice.
And so yeah, it's a really cool. I wouldn't call it full circle. We're not at a full circle yet, but there's some incredible
Evolution.
evolution, growth. We just got a grant which allows me to pay my salary for the first time in 3 years.
Heyo.
Yeah, it's really exciting, which means I can do less influencer stuff. I really liked doing the influencer stuff at first, and now I'm kinda over it, to be honest. And when I say influencer stuff, that is not being sponsored by brands. I love the brands that I work with and have those relationships with, so Cannondale and Shimano and Ride with GPS and Shredly and all those brands that support me for the work that I'm doing. That's not what I'm talking about. I would love to continue doing that. It's, making videos for certain beef jerky brands. It's
Oh, yeah.
the content creator stuff. I just don't.
It's it doesn't align with you, and it doesn't align with All Bodies nearly as well as some of these
Yeah.
other super supportive brands.
Exactly, but that's what I had to do to pay my bills for the last couple
Yeah.
years, and so I'm really hopeful that with the grant, and we're about to kick off some fundraising this fall, that this will be a sustainable organization. I would love to, have a staff one day and to really grow this into what I think it could truly be.
I've been kind of watching this evolution, and I really think that we are at this precipice. I think it's exciting to see the national attention that you're starting to get. You're putting so much thought behind like curriculum and talks and ways not just to get all bodies out there, but to truly make some change within the industry. You've already got these ideas in place as to what success is going to look like by the time you hit it, like making sure that you're talking with the industry about safety standards and you're talking with
Yep.
them about size inclusivity and here are all of the ways that these brands need to really step up. to address this particular segment of the population. I will say one of the things we want to do better on the podcast is focus on intersectionality of the work
Yes.
that you're doing. So I think it's really easy to hear. And this, to be fair, everything you just said supports the fact that all bodies on bikes kind of started as what we mean is fat bodies on bikes. But since then, you've done a lot of good inclusivity work on like it's literally all bodies. All bodies are good bodies. All bikes are good bikes. All rights should be celebrated. What does all of that look like, and how are you hoping to bring in all of these different threads and all of these different cross sections of everyone?
Yeah. I I think it boils down to partnerships. We talk about this as a board a lot. Diversifying our board. A lot of our board when we first came on has been, people that have just had relationships with the brand, whether they're our chapter leaders or folks who are on our original Steamboat Gravel team. So really just taking a deep look at who is on the nonprofit board, who is not, who are we missing. So making sure that the organization is representative of the communities that we say we're representing. And then the second part of that is partnerships. We know we can't be everything to everyone, and if we tried to do that, it would dilute the message of all bodies on bikes. That being said, there's incredible groups out there doing really, really cool work that we can partner together with. I think of Black Girls Do Bike. I think of the Indigenous Women Ride. I'm trying to think of some other ones, the Radical Adventure Riders. There's also even party size cycling out in New Jersey, which is kind of a more social focus group. And I think about adaptive sports, and we're not the experts in that. We don't want to claim to be the experts because there are people who are the experts. So joining
Mhm.
together to do those rides, and that's where I think the intersectionality becomes powerful. If we're talking about weight standards on bikes, are there other standards that would help other folks that we could bring into the conversation while we've got those voices in the room?
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing to acknowledge. We don't wanna try to do everything, but there is so much overlap in all of the work that all of these important groups are doing, and how can we be like, rising tide lifts all boats
Exactly.
in all of this?
Yep. Yeah,
And
100%.
we do have some exciting interviews coming up with some of these people, so I'm excited to dig in.
It's gonna be a fun season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to be continued for
to be
sure.
continued.
That's, I
Yeah.
think, an excellent intro, a refresher on Marley, a refresher on All Bodies on Bikes, an intro to me. I mean, what can I say? And then I like super, super duper excited about what we're going to do. Should we do a little teaser of who else we're gonna have coming up?
That's a great
List.
idea. I need to open up our project management software.
Oh, I have it open. Would you like me to?
Please lead us off while I pull it up.
One of our episodes is going to be a revisiting a conversation with Ellen Noble. I know about Ellen because she had the Instagram handle that I considered switching to. She is Ellen Likes Bikes on Instagram. She retired from professional cycling and then she's come back instead in a totally different version of professional cycling. So we wanted to talk to her about what that all looks like. We've got Jacqueline Francis, who did a ride across,
It was from Utah up to Wyoming.
yeah, as part of a climate change statement, but also part of her role in what she does. We're going to have Irisha Pickett. She leads Black Girl Joy Bike Ride.
Yes, Irisha's actually on our Mid-South gravel team, and we did not know that
Yay.
when we booked her a couple months ago, which is really
Oh,
exciting.
nice.
Yeah,
All kinds of stuff to talk about.
yeah. I have it open now. We're also gonna talk with the NICA president, Amanda Carey. Oh, that's something new in my life that is really fun. I've started coaching a NICA team locally.
You need to describe what NICA means.
I do need to describe what NICA means. NICA is the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, and it's
Okay.
basically cycling teams in middle and high schools. And so I'm working with
Nice.
a local, it's a combination middle school and junior high. It's really, really cool. And we'll talk about it so much more with Amanda from NICA. But I'm just a level one coach, which means
Okay.
all I get to do is sweep rides and kind of be an assistant. And we've had 3 practices so far, and I love it. These kids are so fun, and it's gonna be a really, really fun season of working with these kids.
I think that's great. So is it like a cycling team on but at a high school?
Kind of, it's mountain biking, and so it's more of an individual sport, and so they
Okay.
have their first race this weekend, and as far as I understand, it's like cross country mountain biking. So, there's a rule, wheels stay on the ground, we don't do drops over a certain height, and
Got
so
it.
it's the kind of mountain biking I like, where we're not getting all crazy and jumping or off of things, so
Yeah. having a little bike ride in the woods.
Exactly.
Nice. That is super exciting, and it feels like you're gonna be giving back a little bit too, I'd
That's what I was
accept.
hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So we'll talk with Amanda, and then we will also have a couple of things. So we're gonna also start doing all bodies on bites, all bodies on bites. Can that be something that we do a progressive dinner?
That sounds incredible. Sounds like a good
Okay.
programming idea for one of our chapters.
Okay, great. So we will be doing all bodies on bikes regular updates. So we're gonna have Kaylee on. You guys did this awesome episode at the end of kind of like right before summer hit, where you gave excellent updates just on what's going on and what you have planned. And that's why I know a lot about like the curriculum and the presentations that you talked about. So
Yeah.
we'll be sharing a lot more about what All Bodies has in store, but also wanting to bring that's kind of where we want to bring the audience into the conversation, how they can get involved and how they can be advocating
Yeah.
whether or not they are involved in a local chapter. You mentioned this already. We're gonna have a writing while pregnant episode. I have voluntold one of my friends to come chat with us about her experience and my experience of writing while pregnant. I wonder, I haven't asked you about this, if that should be more of like a writing with the uterus kind of episode.
Oh,
Have we done
maybe.
an have you done an episode about periods?
No, we haven't.
I feel like that might be a good hand holding or like a good partnership
Yeah,
episode
I
there.
think that's a great idea. I wrote an article back in the day for a blog about cycling while on your period. So I can pull
Let's do
out
it.
some of my firsthand knowledge.
Yeah, same. Which
Yeah.
is kind of like we wanna be getting a lot of these conversations out in the open because that's, like, something that, half of all bodies on any bike will be struggling with at some point
Yeah.
in time.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
maybe
not
not
struggling.
struggling, but
Yeah,
maybe. I'm oftentimes struggling with it.
yeah,
So,
I'm struggling.
yeah.
Yeah. Making it to where you're not struggling alone. You are
Yes,
not alone
exactly.
in this. And then a few other things, and I will say the one way that we're gonna use the Instagram question box heavily will be for our Festivus episode, which
Mm,
I'm very excited for. I will prepare. Maybe I will just prepare our audience for this to where if you're not familiar with Festivus, it's from Seinfeld. I didn't watch Seinfeld regularly, but this episode sticks with me to where it's Festivus, which is a holiday for the rest of us, and you air your grievances. So we're going to air our grievances from our 2024 cycling world observations.
Oh, I just thought of one.
Okay,
I'll hold
don't
on
keep
to
it to
it though.
yourself. Yeah,
I'm
hold it.
I'm
Write it down. Go
I'm
write it
gonna write it
down.
down.
Write it down. You'll forget it. But we will want to hear what your grievances are, what you want us to complain about on a somewhat national stage on this podcast. And we'll bring in your comments and we'll say where we got the idea from. Maybe we'll have you send an audio file in. I'm not prepared to commit to that yet,
Me
but it
neither.
would be
I've
really
thought about
cool.
that. Do you ever listen to Payson McKelvin's podcast?
Nope.
So
What is it?
he's a professional gravel cyclist. He's got this great
Okay.
podcast called The Adventure Stash. Shout out to the episode I was on a couple years ago. Anyway, he does race recaps. So after his big races, he'll ask the audience, "Hey, if you were there, send us a voice memo of who you are, where you're from, and what your experience was like." And those are some
Nice.
of the coolest episodes to listen to because you do get to hear different people's experiences. So I would
Right.
love it if we got to that point and figured it out
I think we
technologically,
I think
but
we can.
I think we
I
can, but
believe in
let's not
us.
commit to anything yet.
Not committing, but I think we can.
Agreed.
Non-committal, but confident.
That's how I date.
I I love that very much. That would be a fun way of approaching it.
Yeah, it's a way of approaching it, that's for sure. But no, I actually went on I'm kind of being facetious, but the Festivus episode sounds really fun. I'm glad you explained it because I was also not a Seinfeld person, and my only Festivus reference was I used to go to a CrossFit gym where we had the Festivus games, which was really fun.
And you
But
didn't air grievances, or did you air grievances?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think I was probably too busy suffering with a million
Mm,
squats or something. So,
fair enough. That's your grievance is a million squads.
yeah, seriously.
Let me count them one by one.
Oh, but yeah, looking forward to listener input and just kind of putting a new spin on the show. So we're hoping that y'all will join us in this journey. We have another change. We will be releasing episodes every other week
Yep.
because we are putting so much more time and effort into the production of each one. It's going to take us a little bit longer to get them out, which just gives you
Yeah.
more time to share them with your friends.
That's right. And it means that we're scheduled out through November, so we won't set you up for disappointment when we suddenly don't have anything stacked, but
Exactly.
we are good. Like, we will be releasing things from now until, yeah, end of November for sure, and we'll be building stuff out even after that.
Yep. So please like us, leave us a review, and share us with your friends. We're really excited to be going on this journey with you. Um,
Same. I'm
yeah.
excited to be here.
And thanks for listening. We will talk to you guys next time.
Bye.